with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, roll call.
All right.
Anyone that's not here, say aye. Everyone's here, sir.
Nice try, Mr. Chair. All right, starting with the chair. Chair Leeser,
Here.
Vice Chair Blanco, Representative Chris Canales.
Here.
Mayor Ramon Cano. Senator Joseph Cervantes. Mayor Rudy Cruz.
That's right.
Congratulations.
Mayor Miguel Chacon. Aaron Chavarria. Anthony De Kaiser. Representative Mayor Gonzalez. Representative Cassandra Hernandez. Yvette Hernandez. Commissioner Holguin. City Manager Dion Mack. Representative Willie Madrid. Representative Walter Miller.
Here.
Representative Joe Moody. Representative Eddie Morales. Mayor Diana Murillo. Representative Claudia Ordaz. Representative Lynn Ortega. Norma Palacios.
Here.
Mayor Javier Perea.
Present.
Mayor Rachel Quintana.
Present.
Tony Nevares. Representative Isabel Salcido. County Judge Samaniego. Mayor Anthony Turner. And Tomas Trevino. All right, so we do have one.
All right. Open comment period. Do we have anyone?
No public comment.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to the first item, discussion and action, consider approval of the minutes of the November 15, 2024 TPB meeting.
Do we have a motion?
To approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, item 2, consider approval of amendments to the Regional Mobility Strategy RMS 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan MTP, amended RMS 2050 MTP, and RMS 2025-2028 Transportation Improvement Plan TIP to program the bus purchase project fiscal year 24-5307 using $7,400,000 of FTA 5307 program funds in fiscal year 2025. Anna Gallante with the presentation.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Chair and board members. So this is a pretty simple one. This is part of those amendments that went forward. Most of them were heard by this board in September. For this particular one, there was a couple details to iron out between TPAC and TPB. We got that information sorted and it's ready to come forward. So this is for Sun Metro. This is part of their federal apportionment money, and so this is one of the projects that they're programming with their money. Let's see. I don't know that we have slides for this one. We may or may not, but it's a relatively simple one. And if anybody has any questions or if there's any further information to share, we can certainly have it.
Any questions?
Approved. Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Opposed? None. Motion.
Item 3, consider approval of amendments to the RMS 2050 MTP, amended RMS 2050 MTP, and RMS 2025-2028 TIP to program projects using fiscal year 2026 to 2028 Texas Transportation Alternative Set-Aside TASA program funding as recommended by the TASA Project Call Ad Hoc Committee. So for A, program the Sun Cycle Bike Share Fleet Enhancement fiscal year 26, 27, and 28 project with $124,887 in fiscal years 2026, 2027, 2028. B, program the Brown Street Shared Use Path project with $4,090,584 in fiscal year 2027. C, program the Socorro Safe Routes to School project with $3,696,945 in fiscal year 2028. And D, program the Shadow Mountain Drive Shared Use Path project with $61,166 in fiscal year 2028. Again, Ann Gallante.
Good morning once again. So this item pertains to a project call that we conducted beginning this summer to program the transportation alternative set aside program funds for the state of Texas. There should be a presentation that goes with this item. There we go. All right, so this walks us through a little bit just what the program is. It explains the enabling legislation that began this program, and then just what it's for. So basically, these are funds that are to be spent on alternative forms of transportation to roadways that serve vehicles. We're getting a little bit of feedback. If you're watching from online, let's mute. Thank you. So typically this will be sidewalk projects, but this can be also for other forms of projects too. So provided that they provide alternative forms of transportation that connect origins to destinations. So this isn't a great fit for, say, recreational trails. That's better served by other programs. But if there's things that actually provide a meaningful alternative, filling gaps in an existing sidewalk network, we've done multi-use trails. We've done stations for bicycle rentals and things like that. Next slide, please. This slide shows the funding that is available for each of the fiscal years that were covered by this particular project call. It's about $3 million per year, with a little bit more in the first year. So that was $3.2 million. Next slide, please. This just shows the history of the program in El Paso. We have had several local entities apply for and receive these funds over the years, past 10 years or so. This particular cycle, we received 7 applications from 4 entities. This year, we did have more, applicants for more money than we had money available. There is no limit on the number of applications each entity can submit, but we are constrained by the amount that we have for the program. Next slide, please. This is a funding opportunity that is awarded on a competitive basis, and each application, once received, gets a score by an ad hoc committee that's convened from TPAC members, and they applied these criteria and these scores, and there's a guide for when you get low, medium, and high for each category. And our committee was very thoughtful and very diligent in how they scored these projects this cycle. And they did a very, very good job, and they took it seriously. All right, next slide, please. So after formation, their objectives were to score the projects using the criteria on the previous slide, and then using those scores to inform their decisions on what to fund. And the primary driver for that was the scores received, but there was also some thought given to how can we effectively use, A, geographically distribute, and B, ensure that we are using the maximum amount of funds with leaving the minimum amount on the table. Try to get everything as close to fully programmed as possible. Next slide, please. So now we're going to walk through the recommendation for each of the fiscal years covered. So in 2026, we're awarding to the RMA for $125,000 for Sun Cycle Bike Share Project. This is going to add additional bicycles to the existing fleet. And this was done because most of the projects that were funded that ended up scoring high and receiving funds were a little bit more than the entire annual share. So for instance, if we had like a $3-point-something million project or a $4 million project, the decision was made to kind of bank this year to ensure that funds were available for the future year so that we could fully fund those projects that needed it and were deemed worthy in the scoring criteria. Next slide, please. So again, now Sun City Bikes, we are funding all 3 years. It's a total of 125 times 4 or times 3, so it's like 450-ish total. And then second year, we're doing Brown Street shared use path for the city of El Paso. This is a project that extends from I-10 to Los Padre Mine. Next slide, please. So here you see the RMA with its bike share again. And then City of Socorro with its Safe Routes to School project. This project actually covers multiple locations and supplies missing safety improvements adjacent to school campuses. And it covers several project locations. And then again, City of El Paso with Shadow Mountain Drive shared use path that starts where the street name changes from Sunland Park to Shadow Mountain and then extends further. And so those were the ones that were, and then there's information in your backup packet about the scores that each project received. Next slide. So the ad hoc committee's recommendation was to fund the projects that you saw on the previous slides. And this states specifically what and when in this recommendation. Next slide, please. Staff's recommendation is also approval. It mirrors the ad hoc committee's recommendation. And next slide, please. And TPAC's recommendation was the same. And that concludes the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Representative Hernandez?
Thank you, Ann, for the presentation. This is the first time that I've seen like future, projects that are being funded. So when there's a call out, you're not going to do another call out anymore for the next.
So what we do is when we receive our allocation that covers these programmed years, we issue a project call that covers them. So the next project call that we're going to conduct, since this is years 26 through 28, the next one will cover years 29 through the number of years that are funded.
So the next time when you do a call out, it'll be for future funding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are nonprofits allowed to apply for the funding?
The eligibility here, I'd need to go back and look. It's going to include governmental entities, but I think it might be limited to those. So, and if there was a situation where maybe an entity was entering into a partnership, that might be something that that was allowable. But it's typically constrained to governmental entities.
No, I'm just curious about that. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
Representative Moody?
Sorry, and it may be in here, I apologize for not catching. On the bike fleet addition, so what's the fleet count now? What are the additions that are gonna be gained through these? And are those additional or are those replacement?
I believe that's gonna be augmentation, but I would refer to Mr. Tejas in the audience to answer
Sorry if
specifics
it's there, I just
about their fleet
I
number.
had that down.
Good morning, Ray Mateus with the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority. The current fleet has about 160, but those are inclusive of the red bikes, which are non-electric assist, plus I want to say it's 20 to 30 white bikes, which are the electric assist. What this will do, this will replace the red bikes with the electric assist. Yeah.
So this will have 100% of the fleet will be with the electric assist?
That's the idea. That's where we're headed. So we're really doing two things. One, replacing all of those, the non-electric bikes with electric assist. And we're also starting to focus in on trailheads and trail for our next station locations, placing them along trails.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
I'll second the motion.
Pardon me?
I'll second the motion.
Daisy, who made the first one? Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for that, Secretary.
All right, moving on then to item number 4, consider approval of an amendment to the RMS 2050 MTP, amended RMS 2050 MTP, and RMS 2025-2028 TIP to amend the project description for the program project Downtown Bicycle Improvement Phase 1, CSJ 0924-06-570, MPO ID M089A, to include the number of traffic lanes.
Good.
Good morning again. All right, this one is very, very simple. There are absolutely no changes proposed to the scope of the project, to the funding of the project, anything like that. We're simply bringing it forward because in our adopted public participation plan, it says that if you amend the description of the project, it comes forward for a formal amendment. So in this particular case, the change that we're making here is that we are including the number of lanes before and after on the road diet portion of the project. And this is to be consistent with the guidance that we have received from FHWA about how they want our projects described. So I guess upon their review, it's very easy for them to tell what sorts of changes are taking place. Rather, because if we say simply, road diet or add a lane, it doesn't give them the information they need to perform their review. So all we're doing here is we're adding a little bit of descriptive language to the description of a project with no changes to the project proposed.
Any
Move to
questions?
approve. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item 5.
All right, item 5. Consider authorizing the executive director to execute task order number 5 with the El Paso MPO General Planning Consultant for the development of the International Border Crossing IBC strategic plan for an amount not to exceed $1,514,581.73. All right, so this task order that we're bringing to you is to help us move forward with beginning this strategic plan that we've been talking about for such a long time. In this case, we have WSP, who, as you know, is our general planning consultant. This was one of the tasks that were specifically mentioned in the RFQ when we put out the request for qualifications in the out on the street more than a year ago. So we are moving forward with this. Now, we will, if the board approves this, for us to execute this, we still cannot begin because we are waiting for a tip revision that is part of the November revisions that still needs to be approved by Federal Highway. So that's a necessary step so that, once that revision is approved, then we can move forward with a letter of authority and so on. But we want to get, be ready for whenever that happens, that we can begin the process as soon as possible. Happy to answer any questions on the scope or on specifics.
Mayor Miller?
What is, I guess, the ultimate deliverable? I mean, what is our goal for this study? Can you go over just about what the parameters of what's the result of this?
Sure. So the scope of the work is included in your backup, but let me just describe it generally. What the first phase is to do a literature review of all the studies, all the work that has been done in the region, and try to summarize it. As you know, TTI has done a ton of work. The city has done some work. The MPO has done, multiple plans and programs throughout the years. TxDOT's border master plan and so on. Do a literature review to really try to extract what we can for the purposes of our strategic plan. Secondly, a big task has to do with bringing stakeholders together. The whole idea of this plan is to really make it a true binational plan. Again, as we've said many times, it doesn't work if we plan things on one side of the border without the corresponding activities on the opposite side. So there's a high level of a stakeholder involvement. So the work product out of that will be, have meetings and agreement on whatever we do in the subsequent tasks. Again, agreement from stakeholders on both sides. The third would be do a lot of regional modeling with our tools, the International Travel Demand Model, to understand the current conditions that we have today. And you know that we have done already a lot of work working on with PSA on the Bridge of the Americas study, but we want to go beyond that and spend more time to really understand the current conditions of our 6 border crossings working as a system. And again, this is a regional study that will consider all the crossings from Santa Teresa on the west side of our MPO region all the way to Tornillo. So evaluate those current conditions, and there's a lot of deliverables there in the scope. And then once we have that evaluation of current conditions, the idea is really to start doing scenarios in the future, just like we did with our travel demand model as part of our work here with the MPO. So based on future projections for population, employment, economic activity, and so on, come up with some scenarios in the future. We're looking at the 2052 if we use the new travel demand model, and then start evaluating different scenarios. What if? I mean, the advantage of having a tool like the travel demand model is to really start playing around with different ideas. What if we build a new border crossing here? What if we add capacity to this other one? What if we convert one to only private vehicles or to trucks only, commercial only? What if we do, I mean, our models are sensitive enough that we can even look at the possibility of doing sentry lanes, right, on individual crossings, northbound and southbound. So, and start evaluating what is the impact of these different alternatives, the benefits and of course the costs, right, or the impacts. So the deliverable for that task would be a report documenting all the different scenarios that we are looking. But more importantly, that report will give us an idea of the strategy. This is the whole purpose of the study, right? What is our strategy? As a region, what are we doing with our border crossings to make them more efficient as a region, right? In my opinion, we don't have that vision at this point as a region, right? We have, of course, part of it is because the city owns some of the bridges, the county has Tornillo, Santa Teresa is in a different state, right, than Texas, right? And then right in the middle, we have the Bridge of the Americas that is owned by the 2 federal governments, right? So there really is not a lot of true, coordination and looking at these crossings as a system. So that's going to be one of the deliverables. The idea also of these future scenarios is to get consensus on what the strategy is, right, as a region, and again, working on both sides of the border, so that one of the most important results, in my opinion, is that once we have a good idea of the regional strategy, then we focus on individual crossings to say, okay, if we want to make this crossing modified in a certain way, well, then start developing projects, right, to say, so project A or project 1 is going to be on this specific crossing to do something, and start putting a little more engineering into it at the feasibility level, right? If the idea is to widen or to increase capacity, and not just to the crossing, but also to the connections on both sides, right? Looking at northbound and southbound, right? So, it doesn't help us just to fix the crossing itself, the bridge itself, like in the case of Boda, right? So, what we see at the end of the day is, based on this regional strategy, come up with a list of projects, something that we can call a project, right? That we can start pursuing, because at the end of the day, the improvements that we make to the system are projects, pieces of it, right? We do piece by piece, but it has to be part of a regional, well-thought strategy. Right? So that's a long-winded answer to your question.
Any other questions, Representative Hernandez?
I was just gonna follow up with, what is your timing on the deliverable?
Well, we believe that we can have that we can conduct all of the activities and be in a year and a half, more or less, 18 months. If we start well, hopefully in January, but even if we start in February, we can be done by the summer of 2026. But of course, there's going to be a lot of deliverables in between, and hopefully, we can accelerate this if we have good consensus and good participation from stakeholders on both sides and to move forward.
Just a couple comments. Looking at the project schedule.
Mhm.
The current conditions evaluation is gonna happen mostly in summer months.
Mhm.
I don't know if there makes a difference to do the current conditions in colder months, but just an observation. The second question is the data itself. Who's going to have ownership of the data and the outcomes of the traffic models that you're looking for? Is that gonna be the ownership of the MPO? Or are you gonna provide it to the government, or is the consultant gonna have ownership of that?
No, I mean, the MPO is ultimately we own the data. And of course, as an MPO, it's everybody's data, right? I mean, clearly the consultants, will do a lot of the work and all that, but it's our data collectively.
Right, no, because my question was like with the data itself, the traffic models, you have your team internally look at that when you're looking at different scenarios. I just want to make sure that your team will have full access to that, even if they're not the consultant of choice to provide those scenarios in the future. So I didn't see that in the agreement, so I just wanted to verify that it is the ownership of the.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. There are some data sources that for example, when we look at these location-based services, like INRIX and all that they have these huge database data from coming from cell phones and all that. We will not own that huge database, but all of the analysis, the data that we extract, and more importantly, the analysis of it, that becomes collectively our property. And I mean, it's the whole idea to be able to get this data for all of us to use. And because at the end of the day, we have to implement these projects, and the implementation of these projects will be the responsibility of, could be the city, could be the county, could be, the state DOTs, whoever needs to participate.
Okay, thank you.
To that, Representative Hernandez, this task order is issued pursuant to a master agreement, and ownership of the final work product is addressed in that agreement, and it's MPO. So.
I knew you would know that. Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item number 6.
Item number 6, consider authorizing the executive director to sign a partnership agreement for the use of the Center for Civic Empowerment on the 17th floor of the Blue Flame Building in order to hold MPO Transportation Policy Board meetings in the space in 2025, subject to final review and approval of the MPO attorney.
Oh, we were moving this to Horizon City.
They're waiting for you to leave. What's that, in May? Yeah, so it'll be there after, this only through May.
Right.
Now, there's no charge, correct?
There is no charge, right? But the reason why we don't have the final agreement is that we've been working with the city's legal department. So when we signed the agreement for 2024, for the current one, there was some discussion between our legal counsel and the city's counsel, and we came up to an agreement. I don't really understand why the draft that they provided to us for this year goes back to the original, right? But they're not using all of the changes that we discussed, that we suggested, and was approved under the current one. So that's why we're asking approval, because of course, this is the last board meeting of the year. So let us give us the authority to sign it as soon as we figure out all the details of the final version.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second somewhere? Second. A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Right. All right, number 7, reports and discussion. Number 7 are the quarterly reports for the MPO Administrative Amendments Report, B, Project Completion Report, C, Project Readiness Report, and D, RMS 2020 Projects Report. These reports are in your backup.
Sure.
We really don't see any major issues here. We're happy to present them and discuss them, but in the interest of time, unless you have any questions, we can move forward. There's no action on this. It's just a report.
Right. No questions. Next.
All right, so then finally, Executive Director's report. The only thing I have is reporting on the Texas MPO's EPMPO quarterly meeting that is happening as we speak. You know, I did not attend, obviously, to be participating here today. Harrison Florida is participating, so we will give you a report next month of anything relevant that happens. There is a lot of really important stuff happening right now. There's issues with the planning funds that are going to be distributed to all the MPOs at the state level, with new MPOs coming into place and other MPOs growing and becoming TMAs, transportation management area. So there's a lot of interesting things happening in terms of funding and the redistribution of funds, not just planning funds, but also for construction funds. Also, another point of discussion that is relevant to us is that we need to renew the agreement, the three-party agreement between TxDOT, the City of El Paso as our fiscal agent, and the MPO. That planning agreement is signed, I think, every 4 years, 5 years, and so that's coming up sometime soon. That's all I have. Happy to answer any questions or additional comments from you all.
No, there's no questions. I do want to make a quick statement. I'd like to thank everybody that at the MPO. You've done an incredible job, as I've told you. I've had the opportunity to meet with you for the last year, and the plethora of information that you carry and bring with you is incredible. I've been doing this for 8 years, and I can tell you that you're a class act with a lot of knowledge. So I want to thank you for all that. This is probably, out of all the boards, and I've served on a ton of boards, this is probably one of the toughest boards. You have a lot of knowledge and a lot of institutional knowledge you need to know. And I want to thank everybody on the board. This is my last meeting as I term out. And I do want to thank Walter, really. And I've had the opportunity to sit next to him probably for 8 years. And you are a plethora of knowledge also. You probably bring a lot to this that I've never seen any state, city, city mayor, anyone ever bring the knowledge that you have. And I know that you leave in May, and this board will miss you because you are a pillar of this board, but also the knowledge you bring to the area is incredible. I know that Representative Ortega is leaving us, Representative Hernandez, Representative Alcido, anyone else? So there's only 4 of us in 3 city and of course state rep. Thank you for not only what you've done for the board, but also what you did for the state in transportation. You really brought a lot to our community, and I want to thank you for that.
Enjoyed it.
Representative Hernandez, thank you. I know you've served in the city for 8 years, and I had the honor of appointing you to this board, and you didn't let us down. So I want to thank you for that. And I know Representative Salcido has been on for a couple of years, and thank you all. And again, the city, thank you all for participating. This is a big part of the board is the city, and it means a lot. And you guys show up every week and every month, I mean, which is important. So again, thank you all. I've had the opportunity to do this for 8 years, and it didn't come without having to look for knowledge, but you brought it all to us. So thank you, and I appreciate y'all. And this is my last meeting as mayor, but it may not be my last one ever. So thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add to that, and really from our perspective, from staff, really thank you for your 8 years, and also Rep. Ortega. You know, you also served as chair. We worked together very hard on some really, you know, important topics like funding and so on, and we really appreciate that. And Rep. Hernandez and Rep. Salcido, I know you've been more time here, Rep. Hernandez, but thank you for helping us and serving, and thank you for asking some of the tough questions. Well, sometimes I don't think. No, but in all seriousness, I think all the staff really appreciate everybody's your work as board members, and hopefully we'll see you in a different wearing different hats, but hopefully still in the transportation field. So thank you.
Representative Moody.
Obviously respect to the folks that are leaving, but I'm gonna focus my comments on my colleague from the House, if that's okay. This is 14, 15, 16 years that I've served here on this panel of rotating cast of characters from the Texas delegation, Texas House delegation, Texas Senate delegation. People take various times of interest and focus, and trying to translate what we're doing here to the advocacy spaces in Austin is not easy. And it takes a lot of work, and a lot of it goes unseen. And so I know we have all kind of put our shoulder into things from the delegation side, but really any of that work pales in comparison to what the time that Lena's put into that. And I wanted to thank her specifically, because to do this right, to do this well, takes that time, takes that focus to chair this board, to help bring about, to advocate for reforms here, which at times can be very challenging, very difficult, is a task that is not for the weak. And Lena, I'm just grateful and for the time that you've thrown into this, because we wouldn't be as successful as a community or as a delegation in Austin if it weren't for the time you put in. So thank you for that.
I have a question.
Ma'am.
Mr. Miller, how long have you been with the El Paso MPO?
I can answer that. Long time.
2005 was my first.
Yes, I know, 'cause
20 years basically he'll serve.
and yes, you're right about him with bringing a lot of experience here to the El Paso MPO. I mean, I've been here 12 years, so that's how long I've seen you, so thank you.
He's a mayor, and then a mayor, and then an alderman. So he'll always be mayor for me. So I thank you for everything. You do bring a plethora of information and knowledge. I honestly believe that Horizon City is what it is.
Can we talk about something else?
He's not going until May.
Stop planning.
Anyway, thank you all, and we appreciate it. And anyone have anything else? If not, my final meeting and the final meeting of the year is now adjourned. Thank you.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So
You are-
Likewise.